So good morning, everyone. We are here with Will Eichler, who is a veteran cameraman on various productions and also has a really interesting project that he works with, a longtime living historian. And he started up a project called Civil War Digital Digest. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about that today. Will, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Ray. Good to be with all you guys. I'm sure some people have seen me before as I've had a chance to be down and with you guys a couple of times.
Well, you were at the inaugural Adrian International Film Festival and showed one of your products there. We were very appreciative of that, and also a judge there.
Yeah, no, I was glad to not only have a chance to screen, but also to be able to give back in a festival environment and visit with folks and help with the judging. Hope to do that again down the road.
Well, hopefully this fall we get the green light and Corona's in the back seat as opposed to the driver's wheel, and we can do something with that.
Fantastic.
So talk to us a little bit about your project there.
Civil War Digital Digest is a web series that's in its sixth year. We talk about having X number of volumes, and we're in volume 6. We picked the name volume rather than season or series. From 19th century newspapers, every year would be a turnover, and they would refer to those as different volumes. So in homage to media of the day, we went ahead and used that name. Now we're in volume 6. We started in 2015, late in the year. The idea actually was hatched by my friend Jeremy Bavard, who said we should do something off our allmichigancivilwar.com website to help people learn about living history things. Well, we were actually in Maryland shooting still photography for the website when he came up with that idea. That whole night was a whole bunch of note-taking and whiskey drinking, and then the next day on the drive home, we took more notes. That was the end of May. The beginning of July, we shot 4 episodes, utilizing a set that we have up on the farm that I grew up on in the Thumb, and in November, we launched.
It's a great resource for not only living historians, but I've noticed that with government shutdown and schools being out of session, that you've been referring folks to there for a little bit of history lessons too. So could you talk about some of the episodes?
Sure. Excuse me. Well, we're not in, the point's well made. This is not, well, it is germane to the living history community. Our big goal is to serve the larger history community. What does it take to get media that is both entertaining and enjoyable and educational? We think we're hitting that metric here. We cover anything that has to do with the life of Americans in the Civil War. We've covered a lot of Union infantry topics. We're starting to do more Confederate topics. But for somebody who's an armchair general, you could look at that. For somebody who loves to cook, you could take one of those recipe concepts and apply it in your own kitchen. We've even talked about how that can happen from time to time. We've also had a lot of fun helping connect people. It's a word we use regularly in the digest, is connection, because people, if they don't have a connection to history, there's no reason to walk into the Lenawee Museum. There's no reason to pick up a book. There's no reason to donate to historic preservation or participate in living history. What sparks the connection? This was an American war on both sides, and the struggle was not just on the battlefield. The struggle was at home, was survival, and the life, not just the struggle, but the life. Every American experienced something in this era. And so that's what we're looking for. We've got 10 episodes already on farming skills from the Civil War era, whether it's plowing, whether it's how to shear sheep, whether it's talking about a specific breed of sheep, whether it's talking about how pork was used and was a lot more significant in the era than it is today. We talk about military drill. We worked with our friend Jackie Jacobs, who has a gigantic private collection, and we did 4 episodes specifically on the different types of sleeves in women's garments, and it became 4 episodes rather than 1, because you should check the introduction out. It's a pretty good laugh, because Jeremy was hosting the episode and Jackie was with him, and you can't see the two of them behind the stack of original dresses on the table, so there was no way to do it all in one, and we looked at a lot of originals. We like using original artifacts, not just as a piece sitting there, but as a piece to tell us a story, a way to connect us. We met Frederick Schultz from Iowa through his collection that's been put together by collector Michael Collins. And It was a way to meet a Union infantryman who spent time in Andersonville by the multiple pieces of his that have been put together. That's been the fun of the digest.
And it's telling that story through artifacts. I mean, that's what museums do. It's a great resource. You've got your own YouTube channel. You've got your own Facebook page. We're going to put those links in the comments so folks can check that out. And I know the project's expanding too. You've done some short films. You want to talk a little bit about those too?
Sure, and absolutely. Let me before I do that, let me say one thing about museums. We're starting to talk with, I have been talking with private collectors. One of the things we're happy with, a museum has to make a really focused choice based on square footage. And that is because what you display, you can't be switching regular. It's staff hours, it's safety of the garment, it's the ability to interpret it with text and put it in a proper context. You have to be very focused. Most museums, of course, I'm preaching to the choir here, Ray. You know how many artifacts don't get out that are really great. One of the things we're doing as we're talking with more museums is the same thing we're doing here with collectors, saying, hey, what's in your vault? What do you as a museum person or as a collector have that the public can't regularly see that you absolutely love the story of? And we're working on a sub-series that's coming out in the digest called From Out of the Vault. And that's a chance to take these pieces that can't be displayed regularly and get them a life so people can see and connect with them.
And absolutely, you've done that. I know locally at the Hudson Museum, you folks did a couple episodes down here locally. Hazel Monahan was great to come in and talk, and really that's near one of the last interviews that she did.
I'm gonna say, and what a treasure for us to get to sit and talk with Spunky Hazel and really hear the story through the voice of a veteran nurse who had decades of donating her time and her passion to a museum. We're just the richer to be able to tell that story through her eyes.
Absolutely. We appreciate it.
Yeah, but you had asked about short films. The big thing, and I think this is one thing that I'm developing too, you mentioned a cameraman for me. My full-time job is in narrative television. I work on the TV show Chicago Fire, and I tell fictional stories all the time. And it's caused me to focus on something as we've been going forward in the digest, and that's this. As we talk about history, we so often talk about either a specific process, like we talk about how to make coffee on campaign on one of the digest episodes, which for any of you who camp, it's worth watching because at your campfire, go ahead, give it a try. It's a great way to do it. So it's not just a 19th century application, but okay, there's a how-to. Or we talk a documentary. We've already done some pieces introducing people. We talk about connection through museum pieces. A way that I think we're heavily missing in the history community is telling history through stories. Honest to God, out and out. Don't have me standing in front of this white-haired white guy standing in front of my bookshelf and talking about talking in this case about Israel Richardson. Let's find a true story out of his background and let's tell his story. Well, Hold My Horse, which we screened at the film festival there, was a true story from written down by the color sergeant, one of the color sergeants of the 3rd Michigan Infantry, Dan Crotty, talking about the person that Israel Richardson was. We weren't looking to tell a combat story. We were looking to tell a day in the life, everyday story. And that's what we did. And we're now selling that through selling access to that either for rental or for sale through Vimeo right now. And we're donating already 30% of every sale. And we split that money half and half between historic Fort Wayne, Detroit, where Richardson entered Civil War service, and the Save Historic Antietam Foundation. Richardson, of course, was mortally wounded at Antietam, and we've been able to start not just a contribution to preservation, but an ongoing stream of funding. I had a email come to me just before I went to bed last night, looked at my phone, and Vimeo said, here's your March distribution. Well, there's another chunk of money that's going to both of those sites. And we continue to use the telling of a fun story. And because of where I work, I was blessed to have Christian Stolte, who plays Mouch on Chicago Fire, agree to come in and play Israel Richardson. You get somebody with that veteran chops coming in to play a character. That just helps make it richer and makes it a lot more fun to see faces you recognize. So we're working on doing more good stories. And I could do historical fiction. I could make it up. I could dream up stuff. Why am I going to waste my time doing that? There are so many really good stories in history. We're working on a treatment right now called The Still. It's very early in development, but the original story, a sergeant named Leander Stillwell out of Illinois wrote about in 1864. They hit a camp. The fellas ventured out to go foraging. They found a whiskey still and quietly started doing their own stilling the entire time they were there. They had to run off another Union unit to get place of it. It's going to be a fun little caper comedy, we think.
Excellent. We love hearing those. And, the best narrative history that you can do, as a historian myself, is when, people that your audience comes back to you and says, I cried when this character, died. I fell in love with this character. And to me, that's great from the storytelling standpoint, but it's always good to point back to them and say, this is real life, folks. I'm just telling the story. These are all events that happened.
Well, the one we have going right now is actually my directorial debut. I produced Hold My Horse. And depending when the Adrian Film Festival comes back, hopefully we'll have it finished. We're editing a piece called Whitney's Medal, and that's Mettle, as in strength of courage, because William Whitney is a member of the 11th Michigan. He was the lieutenant on the left end of the line at Chickamauga, and his men were out of ammunition, and his actions earned him the Congressional Medal of Honor. We made a movie about him earning his medal.
Okay, we look forward to seeing a cut of that when it gets to be ready, and hopefully the film.
You and me both. But unfortunately, with COVID-19, we've got about 6 shots left to get. The edit told us we need a few more shots, and good grief, who thought getting 10 people together was going to be the stopper for movie making? I never would have believed it.
Well, maybe we could do it on a Zoom call, Will.
Trust me, we're considering all options.
Well, anything else you'd like to share with us? Any big things coming up for the Civil War Digital Digest?
Big things are, we're like everybody else, staying home, staying safe, but development continues here, both on the short film and movie side and on the shooting for the actual digest series side. We've got several days of shooting lined up here in state that as soon as we're told we're okay to move, we're going to be able to start shooting again. I hope this year you'll also start to see something that was an original goal for the digest, and that's more biographies within. Those will probably start with a biography on Israel Richardson, of course, and then Michigan had a governor named Russell A. Alger in the late 1800s. He ran the GAR both at Michigan and at the national level after the war. And he was the colonel of the 5th Michigan Cavalry at Gettysburg. So part of Custer's Wolverines. He was the officer sent from the 2nd Michigan Cavalry before he transferred to go pick up their new colonel in St. Louis, newly minted Colonel Philip Sheridan.
Oh, so that'll be excellent tale.
Yeah, he's got a great tale. I actually have an original drill manual that he signed that was in his collection in 1861. And he's been raising his hand to me several times over the last few years out of history saying, hey, tell my story. And so we're working on a straight out biography piece to do that.
Well, it'll be great. Well, something to look forward to. And like I say, we've got links in the comments below here. Click on over, subscribe to their YouTube channel. It's always great content. Like them on Facebook. There's a lot going on there right now. Even though things are locked down, I know you guys are pretty active, at least on a weekly basis.
Like I say, we've doubled our effort. We've been doing things every other week, and those digests still happen. We have live streams on the off weeks right now. The idea is, how can we get a break? How can we relax from where we are? How can we get a distraction? Well, take a journey. Come on back in history for a little bit.
Absolutely. Will, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule today to talk to the folks with the Runaway Museum.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate the invite. Good luck, everybody. Be safe.